And you're listening to solar-powered KRUU-FM, broadcasting from the Cultural District here in Fairfield, Iowa, people-powered radio. We also broadcast on the World Wide Web machine at KRUU-FM.com. Welcome into the house, as always, the strong Mr. Jason Strong with FMC, videotaping proceedings here, filming, I think we like to call it, mini documenting, I don't know, whatever. And also Michael Halley joining us from City Council to give us an update on what's going down at City Hall. Michael, how you doing today?
Good, glad to be here.
Good to see you. As always, what do you got?
Well, you should start by just, I hope the radio listeners get a chance to view this on the Fairfield Media Center's YouTube channel, because James has this very patriotic baseball cap. It's red, white, and blue.
It's sort of the festive season.
Yeah.
I played that weekend and forgot to wear it, so I'll probably wear it the rest of the year just to make up. You know what I'm saying?
It's great. And he's got the aviator shades on, so it's really a complete look.
I do it for radio.
All right.
Anyway, good to see you. And as well, it's fmc.com is the website. FairfieldMediaCenter.com, the full Monty there.
It's a great page, and lots of cool videos.
Yep, good stuff going on for many years. These guys are doing a most excellent job, and also the full, as we've mentioned many times, the full City Council proceedings there, City Hall, if you want to get into the whole 9 yards. But
it actually wasn't that long last night, about 45 minutes, so very watchable. Goodness. I try to throw a joke in occasionally just to try to keep things lively. But
dangerous business.
Yeah, you know how it is.
I do, very much. And so
sometimes it's well received, other times just eye rolls.
So do our listeners. Yep. So anyway.
All right, so this is an informal review of the July 11th, 2016 regular council meeting. As part of our consent agenda, we had a hiring at our fire department, so I can talk a bit about that. We hired Jason Crandall.
Yep.
As the third full-time driver. Now, the personnel committee, which I chair, had been investigating possibility of changing the model with the fire department. Some communities do not have full coverage, meaning there's not a driver at the station 24/7, 365. Fairfield does, and we pay for that. We pay for that through our property taxes to have that level of service. So we were predicting budget shortfalls for this fiscal year until the state came in and raised the assessment value of properties in the area. Mm-hmm. And so we were looking at different departments, and fire department was one of them, and considering could we modify that model to save taxpayers money but still provide good service. So one option that was looked at was, instead of 3 full-time drivers, what if we had 2 full-time and then the rest of the coverage was handled by part-time drivers?
Right.
And there would be savings because police and fire, especially their retirement benefits are how should I say, attractive, and that's something we pay into, and it's it's part of the job because they're putting their lives on the line.
Right.
So part-time could be savings there, could be savings in other ways. So our fire chief, Scott Vaughn, looked into it. Currently, all the backup drivers have full-time jobs. They work Monday through Friday. They work 40 hours a week. Hopefully not 80 hours, 40-hour work week, and didn't have that flexibility to fill in these hours. The way that they do it with the 3 full-time drivers is they work a 24-hour shift, and they rotate. So it didn't make sense currently to try the part-time. So the personnel committee authorized and brought it to council to go ahead and fill that third full-time position. So 3 full-time positions, 24/7 coverage. It's the way we have this minimalized response time when calls come in. So it's a benefit for public health, public safety. But we also found another way to, you could say, stretch those dollars a bit. In the past, the firefighters who were at the station, their main responsibility was just the station. So if there was some auto mechanic work, whatever that needed to be done, they did that. But now we're asking that during the work day, so that part of their 24-hour shift that's basically 8 to 5, that they assist not just the fire department, but they can assist the police department with traffic control and emergencies. They've assisted wastewater and waterworks when they do confined entry. So they can, again, they can be there and assist with traffic and such. And they're helping Scott Vaughn's other position, which is code enforcement. And he was really, admittedly, falling behind because there's such a long list and there's a process that has to be taken when people are out of compliance with the code. They get a warning, another warning, and if they just ignore it for years, he has to take them to court. And he just didn't have the time to do it. So now these 3 drivers are all new within the last year. So he's got a complete turnover. And each one, when they were hired during this time that we were looking at the model. They're aware that it may change at some point, and they're also aware that the city is wanting them to assist and make their job more valuable to the city. So they're on board with it, and we're already seeing...
May I just correct me if I'm wrong? I just want to rephrase that. So in other words, they've been working so many hours. The hours have been toward certain things. They're still the same hours, but in the event that whatever they maybe had been doing could be directed or redirected for different uses during that time period, but they'd still be obviously ready to go at any point for anything that's required from the fire station point of view. Yep. But it's just a way of sort of redirecting what can be done.
How their time is spent, yeah.
A lot of their time. And so interesting, yeah.
Yeah. So, for example, they don't need to stay at the station if they take the truck, the fire truck that has the equipment on it, if they take that when they go to handle some code enforcement, delivering letters or going around assessing properties, when someone's left a home uncared for and they have to go through the process of documenting it and all this. If they have the truck with them, they're ready to go. If a call comes in, they take that truck to the scene, and what the fire department uses a swarm effect, so all the part-time people who have day jobs get the call and meet the truck at the scene. They don't have to go to the station first. Gotcha. So that's why the response time's shorter. All the equipment they need, all their suits are on the truck. So as long as the person, if the driver is on duty, has that truck with him, then he's ready to go.
That's part of the plan.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So that's why it's okay if they can go out and help. And I don't know, I'm not saying that the past employees had idle time. It was just a slightly different approach. And we feel that this is adding value to the city. So when you have somebody who's getting paid the same to do more work in a sense, then obviously you get a better value. So we're very happy. Scott Vaughn is happy because his long list, he could not make progress on his code enforcement.
But it means people might be who have felt that things have gotten behind. They're not going to be taken to task for certain things. It just means that the other repercussion of that is that there will be more active pursuit
on the code enforcement. Yeah, and this is a lot of time. It is because it's especially when it comes to safety. So if you have out of town property owners, they own property here, but they live somewhere else, and they let it fall into disrepair. Okay, fine. They let the grass get long. Well, that's not such a public safety issue, but if they let let's say they have ash trees on their property and they're not taken care of, and the trees start to degrade, or the property itself becomes vacant, and people start to get in, or animals start to get in. You start getting this issue where it gets a little bit more important to follow up. So there are code violations every block in the city, I'm sure, somewhere. But the small ones don't get enforced as much. It's the things that become a big issue.
Well, it sounds like there's a priority list, and that as the time fills in, and depending and so forth. So.
Yeah, and I would say that I can ask Scott this. I'd like to get his opinion, but it feels that more citizens are wanting their neighbors to upkeep their property. I get calls about it. I just got a call earlier in the week from someone in my ward who was concerned about a neighbor's property, and I know other people are getting calls about it, and Scott is getting the most because that's his job. And so if I keep my yard and I keep my house in good condition and my neighbor doesn't, okay, if it's aesthetics, there's nothing the city can necessarily do. But if they're not maintaining certain things, then I would want them to do that. It's just, you want the whole neighborhood to try to maintain a certain standard. So it seems like there's just a higher standard that the citizens are asking for as well, which may be why the volume that Scott's dealing with is higher. I don't think it's because there are a higher number of vacant properties. I wouldn't think that's the reason, but I'm going to find out so I can report back on that.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. Again, we're speaking with Michael Halley. This is James Moore, KRUU-FM. After City Hall, we have 12:30, the lunchtime live version after each Monday's City Hall session, then Thursday at 6:30 p.m. dinner time, the following Monday, 6:30 a.m. that you can check in. Also, FMC will have the videotape up, and we might even start doing something live. We're considering, with all these phones, everything's becoming live. It's almost like everything's living. It's getting a little scary out there. But anyway, back to the docket of the City Council.
So speaking of a property that's out of compliance with code, we had an appearance from a gentleman who has a property on West Adams that has been vacant for years and the neighbors have complained about. And so here's an example where the city has the right to, we could take them to court and do all that. We're not going to. Instead, we're working with the property owner. We keep setting deadlines. Okay, we want you to get all the windows replaced and get the exterior fixed by this date. And so he comes back, he reports his progress, and then we encourage him to continue. And he's got a set deadline. He's got to get this thing occupied because it's not legal to have a house that's not livable. It's got to be up to standard. That's part of the code. So he's working on it. He's actually a builder by trade and just trying to find the time to do this.
Yeah.
But that's an example. That's for the most part how the city does it. It's a cooperative effort. It's an encouragement and setting some deadlines. We had to do the same thing with a trailer park years ago, and that owner of that trailer park got it all up to standard. And so, you can't have things like electric cords running from a property that does have electricity across the road through the grass into one that doesn't. That's a code violation because it's just plain dangerous. You think, if it's raining, some kid goes out and walks and steps and gets electrocuted. You don't want that. So fixing things like that, anything that's a fire hazard or attractive to rodents and that whatnot. So these are examples. Since I've been on the council, we've worked with property owners. The tough ones are when they are not around to talk to and they ignore all the letters you send. That's what Scott's trying to follow up with that I mentioned earlier.
Right. Because what do you do if you got nothing?
Exactly. No response. It's just, becomes a hassle. All right. So we move forward with the resolutions, action items, ordinances.
Okay.
Moving forward on the 6th Street. That is such a tongue twister.
6th Street.
That's the one. It's a little bit of a reconstruction from Grimes to Depot. It's a one block, but it's in pretty bad shape. So that's going to get done. And then we had an awarding for a hazardous tree removal contract. So in the past, the city had worked with the local tree removal company, Brown's, but then Mark Brown is now an employee. He's one of the drivers at the fire department. And as per state code, if you have a city employee who also is part of a business that's employed by the city, then you have to formalize. And this is just, I think, important anyway. We've done this before where if there's a project of a certain size, over 10,000, I think.
Bid it out.
You bid it out. So this was, instead of bidding them individually, we allowed the local tree services to bid for giving us their rate on various types of tree removal, and they get the contract for 1 year. So it's pretty tight between Brown's and Midwest Tree Service, but Brown's edged them out, had lower rates, and they got the contract. So what that means is mostly a lot of these ash trees that need to come down have been waiting until this was formalized. And so now that they have that, the funding comes from Public Works. It's part of their budget to handle street trees, and then Park and Rec if it's park trees. But it's important now. We're getting into, I can tell when you drive around, we're getting into it now with the ash trees. You see it all over town. If you see a tree that has a lot of dead branches and some strange, almost looks like bushy growth near the trunk, that's most likely an infested ash tree, and it's struggling for survival, and unless chemically treated, won't survive. And so there's going to be an increase of removing those trees. And then on the flip side, an increase of replanting them. So I'm going to have to keep looking for those grants and keep that project moving. But
trees are such good things.
They really are. They're one of the only things that actually increase in value over time instead of depreciate. So we want trees. They do a lot of good for our community.
Good for breathing, good for visuals, good for a lot of things, shade.
Energy efficiency. All right, so we accepted 3rd Street, Highland, and Monroe Van Buren, Cromwell projects as final. These were projects from last year, and the only thing that was keeping us from considering them final and paying out the last little bit of payment was the grass seeding, and so that's all done. We moved forward on an amendment with the ambulance contract. So there's an ambulance board. It's made of a city council representative, Katie Anderson, a county representative, I believe it's Becky Schmitz, and then a hospital representative. And those 3 entities manage the contract with the ambulance service, which is an actual third-party private business. In some communities, I think people just assume that the hospital owns the ambulance and all that. They don't. These 3 entities pay for it and have a contract. And there were some concerns about various aspects of the service. Were the employees, were the number of employees that the contract said matching the reality? If not, does that affect the quality of the service we get? Is the equipment that was stated in the contract in the ambulance, in every ambulance? Some concern about that. So this amendment is addressing that, and it's not anything that the ambulance company hasn't seen. They talked about this at the last meeting. So now that the council has passed it, if the county then passes it, then those representatives can go back, and there'll be another ambulance board meeting, and they'll be able to say, okay, this is language that our organization supports. All right, we've had a little resolution of support. Hawthorne Direct wants to expand here in Fairfield. And there's some funding from the state economic development authority, and it just required a resolution. But the city actually, resolution of support doesn't offer any incentive. We didn't offer them anything because FEDA is offering them some sort of incentive for their expansion. And so FEDA will offer them the financial incentive. Ours was just a formal letter of support, which helps them with their application.
Well, good for them. Yeah, there was some talk some while back, never grounded, but are they leaving? Are they staying? But it sounds like they're not only staying, they're expanding. And that's a word we don't hear every day these days. Expanding.
Well, Dexter's expanding as well. If you're driven out in the Grimes, you see what they're doing.
Well, a new club, too, on 4th and Depot.
Oh, yeah.
And we see now the sushi place moving right in that beautiful row next to Cafe P down the street, Revelations, where Fair Festival is going to have a front part to it there. Nice kind of trickle up. Beauty. And stuff.
And I heard there's going to be a little restaurant taking the spot of where Shokai is now.
Oh, great. What did you hear what it is?
Authentic Thai is what I heard.
Wow.
Yeah. I think it's the daughter.
I like even inauthentic.
Yeah. Well, it's the daughter of the owner of Thai Deli, I think, is
I'll be darned.
Kind of soups and that kind of thing. And then, so always something going on. We finalized the rezoning of the FEDA property, the corner of 12th and Gear. We had already finalized the portion that's it's going residential. It's right along 12th Street, along the west side. And the other 2 portions, one will go to M1, which is light manufacturing, and one goes to, or limited manufacturing, one goes to M2, which is general manufacturing. And that may be at some point absorbed or purchased by Sky Factory as part of their property. And then at some point, if the houses that are built, if that project goes well, they actually might take some of that M1, zone it as residential, and expand westward. So some room for some houses, which we always can use more of.
Pro house, you feed me, I feed you. This is Italian. Uh-oh.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're popular today. We should do like a talk show, call in and answer questions.
What did you say?
We passed the second reading of the ordinance for outdoor dining for downtown establishments. This
Nice.
refers to dining on the sidewalk, potentially in 2 parking spaces, though no one I've talked to seems to be able to afford what that would cost, so it's not likely it's going to be done, but they're called parklets or temporary.
What does that mean, that you block them off?
Yeah, you take 2...
Which would be enough for some tables or something.
You put up a platform and all these regulations about that. But it's done in other cities as a seasonal.
There's a fee for that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, a seasonal. It's not just the fee, the $250 fee for the permit. It's the thousands of dollars to build the platform to spec that most restaurants would not be able to.
And that's a temporary thing.
Yeah, it'd be from April through October or something. But
I gotcha.
It's difficult to recoup the cost on something like that. Mm-hmm. What is great about outdoor dining is that it allows restaurants to expand their seating without needing to expand their physical location. Mm-hmm. And then beyond that, it creates kind of a buzz in your downtown that's helpful for bringing people there.
Yeah.
So we passed that. We have one more reading that's coming up at our next meeting.
And I just want to be clear. That means this idea that any establishment could, for a fee, take 2 spots in front of them for the whole season.
Yeah, it would be for the season.
And that means any with a front around the square. And
yeah, it has to be essentially in front of their establishment.
Okay.
Or close to in front of it. It's, again, I say, well, it's not likely to happen. The people who are concerned about it was, well, you're creating an ordinance, meaning somebody could potentially do it now that's law. So we'll see. We'll see if someone does it and how it goes.
And work back. But the point is, it's not something you can do obviously for Fairfest or something, it'd be great to be able to do that, but the intention is not to be able to do it for a weekend. If you do it, it's a whole enchilada. And would it make sense, based on what you're doing, to try to do it, something like that?
Yeah. If you had an establishment, I can think of one in town that seems like it's always bursting at the seams, and the investment allowed you to have more customers, then maybe you could crunch the numbers. It could pay yourself over a season or 2. Mm-hmm. But I think for a lot of people, it's cost prohibitive. It's not something you'll see a lot of. What we are going to see is the outdoor seating get cleaned up so that there's always a 4-foot pathway, et cetera. So it's actually, for people who are concerned, this will make the sidewalks more crowded. Actually be the opposite. This is formalizing something that's never been formalized before. And I think that you'll see certain restaurants, Amore Mio's interested, and like you said, Shokai's Moving is interested, putting together some really nice outdoor dining areas that will be a benefit to our community.
Awesome.
All right, committee reports. Ways and Means Committee talked about, see how much time I have.
5 minutes.
All right, I'll just refer to it, but the building, 123, 20th Street. I can't remember exactly the street is. I think it's 20th. Used to be MRC Recycling, and then they defaulted on their contract. Well, we got a new contract, and it was for this company that was going to be renovating these outdoor vehicles, and their funding fell through, and so they're kind of reorganizing themselves. They've changed their model. They're doing work. They're installing audio systems and doing detailing. They actually bought some mopeds or little scooters and renovated them. They're going to work with the university on leasing them.
Oh, cool.
So they have this other kind of direction. It shows the resiliency of the owner. But when the time comes for them to purchase the building at this discounted price, if they don't create the jobs that they said they would, which they're not likely to, then they'll probably have to pay a higher price, because that was an offset to give it to them at a lower price. They had to create these jobs.
They're aware of course.
Yep, that's why we met with them. Mm-hmm. And Personnel Committee, already talked about that. Property Committee, we met just to, I can't even remember what we met for. Give me a second. Oh, that's right. Possibly vacating C Street, which now doesn't make sense to do. It's that little section just right by the tracks. It's not really a street. It's like kind of a parking lot for a building. Mm-hmm. And then I gave a Blue Zones update just this Thursday, if you're listening Monday, if you're listening Thursday. It probably already happened. Someone from Des Moines is coming to take some photos. The Blue Zones project in Iowa is pretty much in its last year or so.
During the afternoon, they're coming out.
Yeah, there's sometime during the day to take some photos. So if you see them out, be friendly, wave, and say hi. But our involvement's also ending probably a year from September. So
it's been a long run, a good run.
It has been a long run. And like I was saying at the meeting, we've done a lot of good things with it. So I just wanted to let people know, you'll continue to hear that name, Blue Zones Project, probably for about another year. And then we'll transition into whatever it is we want to call our local initiative.
Great.
It was called Let's Go Jeffco for a while.
Let's Go Jeffco. That's my kind of name.
Yep. And last but not least, we said hello to Calvin Todd, our new Park and Rec superintendent. He was very patient to sit through the meeting. And he said he's moved in and started the job. And so far, enjoying it. I invited him to get involved with the Young Professionals organization because a lot of people, when they move to town, are looking for networking opportunities, friendships, maybe looking for a significant other, who knows. And Young Professionals organizes like a couple events each month, happy hours, professional development, volunteer opportunities. If you're between 20 and 40 and you're on Facebook, check out Young Professionals. It's my little plug for them. So hopefully, we'll help him integrate. But he seems that he's just thrilled to be here and have this position. This is the position he's pretty much always wanted. He started he started in Park and Rec in high school as an intern. He started at maintenance, so he said basically the ground floor, and he was just an assistant director, and now he's the big shot. So that's great. It's really worked out well.
But I'm just wondering if there's anything for any groups for old non-professionals.
Yeah, we can make one.
No, just walk out on the street, just like me, guys. Join me. Anyway, I love everything and everybody. Michael Halley, thanks for coming by. 4th City Council Ward not supervisor, City Council member.
I like the super part.
He's a superman. And I tell you what, Muscles of Steel, Jason Strong in the house as well. Thank you, FMC. And we'll be back next, probably in 2 weeks, talking more. But thanks so much. A little siesta ocha, and we'll be out of here. Stay tuned for more great programming coming up in just a moment. Hear that pop, guys?